Alright, welcome to part 2 of our build, working on my dad's Jeep, Mr. CJ. So far we got the frame set up and we got the axles in place. I think last week when we talked about the braces that we used for extensions, we kept calling them 2x4s. It's actually, if I measure outside to outside, is 3 inches by 4 inches. So, and then the frame rail itself is, the Jeep frame rail is 2.5 outside to outside on the width. So by getting one that's 3 inches wide and then it's 1/4 inch thick, so the 1/4 inch plates take up the spacing on the side, and that's how we're able to sleeve it over. So it's a 3x4 square tubing and it's a 1/4 inch thick plate. And from the top cut to top cut is exactly 15 inches. And then from point to point on the sides, we went with 22 inches. So that's how we got those. Those are welded on, those are done. So what we did and what we've been doing is we got the axles in place. Right now we're just concerned for our goal for today is to get the rear links tacked in place. Problem with that is we're going with this whole GenRide kit as far as link kit goes, and the directions kind of tell you is you got to know your ride height, you know your tire size, you know your pinion angle, but we're going off of a whole new build. So we had to get our LS2 engine, turbo 350, and our turbo 400 and our Dana 300 transfer case, and we had to mock all that in place. And we've kind of just been playing with it back and forth because, again, my garage floor is not perfectly level, so it's kind of a pain in the butt. But we got the engine set up, and we got the engine level, and we got a 4-degree pitch down for oil and obviously for like driveline. So the motor mounts we have, because I have my CJ, right? We already have an LS in mind. We already knew where we wanted the motor mount, right, from the front to back, right? This, I think it gives us like a 2.5 inch clearance from the firewall.
Correct.
So we went from the front frame rail to right about here, which was 34 inches for this advanced adapters motor mount that gets welded to the frame. So we went with that, and then we went with 4 degrees down angle, and then we made sure it was leveled left to right. And then we have it up kind of high, right? I feel like we have it up kind of high. So the way we wanted to set it up is the oil pan and the transmission pan are pretty much almost everything's level with the bottom of the frame rail. So later on we can add a belly pan, you know, across the bottom of this thing and it'll be easy. Obviously this Dana 300 sticks out lower than that, but we're going to be going to a Atlas 4-speed, right?
Yep.
So it'll be zeroed out, and we should be fine there later on. I'm pretty sure we measured back here from the top of the frame rail to the bottom of the Jeep tub. We were at like 11 inches. So I want to say we have like a 2-inch gap here. So we should be okay there. I'm pretty sure we might have to cut the bell housing to get more room, or cut the floor to get more room for this bell housing, right? But we'll get there when we get there. If we need to put in a whole new transmission tunnel, you know, we've knocked that out. That's no problem. So now we know our engine's in place. It's just mocked up, and now we want to find out our pinion angle, right? And then once we center all this and we get our pinion angle, then we can weld all these brackets in place. Okay, so now as far as the rear end is, so the way we wanted to try to build this, you know, and mock everything up is we decided to build it at full compression, right? That way we know if something's going to interfere, we can just start cutting it out, or know that, hey, we need more clearance here, or we need to adjust because it's not going to work. So in the GenRide directions, it tells you that you're going to have to cut out some of this to get the most clearance, right? So now we decided to cut out some of this bracket here to make sure we get the most clearance we can. And then what we also did is we went ahead and mocked up the GenRight gas tank, which is cut out and spaced out for a larger diff, right? So we know that at full compression, this is where everything's gonna stop. You know, we'll have our bump stops and everything stop according here. So at this point here, our links hit the bottom of our frame rails, and our diff is going to stop right here, and we still have a 2.5 inch gap between the gas tank to the diff cover, just to give us a little space. We didn't want to get too close to it. Now at ride height, this should actually come down and pull away to give us more of a gap, right? So we should be good. So we know we might have to cut a little bit more here, so when this thing articulates full left and full right, we know that this truss will probably hit this bracket. And then we'll figure out how to reinforce this later on. We'll probably just add a strip of metal across the top, or like a piece of angle iron or something like that. But we know we have good room here. We'll probably have to cut a little bit off on the sides. And then now at this point, with all this mocked up, we're going to figure out our pinion angle and then just kind of hold everything in place. And then we're going to go to our actual lower links, and then we'll start, you know, getting that in place, and then we'll tack weld it in. So, all right, let's get to work. All right, so before we get too far into this, and then we start messing with the rear end, we're going to go ahead and tack weld these the motor mounts in. Now we know they're good, they're burned in, and then we can move on to the next thing. So let's knock that out real quick. We already cut out this brace, right? The cross member out. Looks like we'll probably have to cut a little bit more out. These are our upper links that will go onto the truss, and we're going to put them just in front of this truss on this pinion guard, right? And this whole thing gets welded together, right?
Yep.
So the brackets are cut at 20 degrees, or they're angled at 20 degrees at the frame, right? So they say that you want a 40-degree V to center the axle, right? You can do 40 or more. So I figured we're gonna add a little bit on these, right? So to put here, it's gonna be a 45, right? So it should be like a 23.5 degrees is what the both upper links are gonna be at. So these are 45 from each other, right? So we just notched them. And then all we got to do is go from the center and tack weld these out, right? Here, however many inches from there to here, however many, same amount of distance from there to here. So then we know these are spaced evenly, right? And then we'll just push them all the way back, tack weld them in, and then we can figure out our link arm, and then we're going to figure out exactly where we want that upper bracket to go. And then we're going to try to keep the full length of our link, which was, how long did you say it was? 34?
34.
Okay, so 34 inches, right? We already have our pinion angle set right now. And then, is it?
No, 36.
Oh, 36 inches. 36 inches. So they should go. So they should go where we had them yesterday, then. Okay, cool. Let's figure out a placement for our bracket, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so what we need to do is we need to put this.
We tacked in the upper brackets for the upper links, and we just gave a couple tacks. We got those spaced out evenly, and we went off of a bolt on the caliper, and we did a straight line across to the edge of this bracket here. It gave us 23 inches, and all we did was did the exact same thing from this bolt to here, and that gave us 23 inches. That way we know these are spaced evenly from left to right, and it's good. And so where this is tacked in, the truss is tacked to the axle tubes, so that's just tacked all good. It's tacked. Now we went ahead and slapped on the GenRight bracket here, and figured out where we liked it the best. So without cutting the pipe, because we want to go with the longest tube we can go with, right? Without making any cuts or anything, we slapped it on right here, and it actually fits pretty good. It's kind of what we wanted to do to begin with, right?
Originally.
So we have the bracket. It actually sleeves over right about here is where we cut the frame. So it sleeves over it, and then this is just going to help to reinforce this whole area, right? So it slides on right there. We went ahead and marked our front hole in the frame that on the YJ dimensions. When you look them up online, there's a hole that's like the 0 mark, and all the measurements are based off of that mark. So we measured from that hole to the front edge of this. It gave us, where were we at? 61¼ inches. So all we did was measured from that hole again in the frame, came back here, and we did 61¼ inches. So we cleaned up the metal, slapped on the bracket again, and then now we have both upper links, and it looks really good, right? Again, this is all set up at full compression, right? So these are kind of high. Where's my angle finder?
On the pinning angle?
Oh, there it is. I knew that. So if we slap this right in the middle somewhere, that looks pretty up and down. What's that reading? I can't see it.
We're about 4, 3.
Yeah, it's bouncing between 4 or 5 degrees, right? So that's 5 degrees going up, right? So generally we want to keep this as straight as possible. But again, this is all set up at full compression, and we're also at the highest point here. Okay, so when the frame comes up and this axle comes down and the link's off, right now it's going to be like a negative angle. Then we can lower this link to help. This is all for the anti-squat. We can go up and down with this link here, right? So, and we're pretty close, you know, so I think we'll be fine. So now, next point is what we're going to do is we're going to take our ruler and we're going to butt this up against the caliper bracket, right? And we're just going to do like half-inch increments, right? We're going to mark, you know, ½ inch, 1 inch, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and we'll go out to like, I don't know, 4 or 5 inches, right, on each side. And then that kind of gives us like a little visual indicator, right? And then what we want to do is we want to have the lower link connect, right? And the bracket for the lower link, we want to go as far out as possible to do that actual, you know, double triangle, right? Of course, you don't want to butt it up to the axle tube, but we want to go as far out as possible. And then again, one thing to think about when we're doing this and then building it full compression is we know we're going to hit here somewhere, right? So we'll see where we bind up and we'll kind of go from there.
Where the stopping point
yeah.
Be.
So you can see here, all I did was I took my my ruler and I butted up against the caliper bracket because that's square. There's a weld right here, so I couldn't do that. I just went a little farther, and then as it's square, I went ahead and marked about every ½ inch. And I just went a couple inches out because we know we want it somewhere in this range here. So whatever, we'll do this side, right, for the lower link, and then whatever we like that seems to work good, we'll just go off of however many inches, and we'll just do the same thing to the other side. And then we'll tack weld this in, tack weld that in, and then we should be good to go. Alright, I'll hold it, and if you want to put the bolt in, just a little back. Oh, forward? Forward. Probably have to use a hammer because those holes are like real tight. Right there. Look on the other side, it's probably lined up. It's in there. I think I need to adjust this that way. Try it. There you go. Tell me if I need to move it. Cool. Alright, so we got the lower link connected to the bracket. And now we just want to figure out where we want this sucker. So, oh, you know what?
We need to square out the differential.
Yeah, I know.
Evenly.
I think it's off a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, let's make sure the diff is square, and then we'll do that. All right, so we decided to go with right where it's at, right there, which gives us like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm like 6 hash marks in. So what is that, like 3.5 inches? Something like that. Let's see what this says. We went from there, so from the backing plate, we're right at, yep, 3.5 inches. So kind of like that spot there. Seems to work pretty good. So we're gonna tack weld that, and we're gonna go ahead and tack weld the brackets at the frame. And then this side will be good, and then we're just gonna do the same thing to the passenger side. And then I think what we'll do is we'll probably remove the engine from the frame, put that down on the ground, and then we'll raise the frame up as high as we can, and then we'll articulate the rear. And we'll probably have to take the tires off so we can get full range of motion. And then we can really see how it, how it feels, or how it articulates anyway. All right, so we got everything tack welded in place, the brackets and the links for the rear. We want to articulate the suspension, but obviously before we do that, we need to get this engine and trans back off because the motor mounts are only tack welded in. So we're just going to take it off the motor mounts, and we're going to set it down on the ground. We're going to raise the frame up to ride height, and then we'll try to articulate the motor, see how it goes. So, cool, let's do it. Alright. Okay, let me...
Towards me?
What? Right there. As long as it clears those motor mounts, now we can go down with it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go bring yours down.
I won't go down here because the differential is right there.
Oh, just roll it forward.
I think it's clear. You gotta raise the frame up. I think if we go that way with the engine, we could. Just roll forward.
Clear now or no? The fuck is over here? Oh, it's a stupid block of wood. Alright, just leave that. Alright, go down with it.
Come down.
Guys gonna come in or you want to eat outside?
Yeah,
We'll go inside.
we're coming.
Keep going. Where's it binding up?
Right there.
Pull it forward.
Right there. Okay.
There you go. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, so we got the brackets tack welded, we got the links tack welded, and we got the truss tack welded, and the lower links tack welded. Everything looks good, but we got the wheels off, we got the frame up a bit. Now is the actual point where we're gonna see if this thing actually articulates good or not. So let's do it. Ready? It's your Jeep. Leave it. Yeah. Let's see what happens. So the links are just tack welded. We were gonna do the whole PVC trick, but we said if we're not gonna cut the links, let's just use them. So we have a jack underneath the diff. So right now, what do you want to do? Up and down, or do you want to do articulate left and right?
Let's do left and right first.
Okay, so
So I'll push down on mine.
okay. can go more.
We're gonna push it off down. The accents.
Oh, is that? It's kicking it over?
Yeah, it's kicking it over.
And
Push off the accent.
let's do this. How about? I'll pick it up. Put it on the. Put it long ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's fine. Are you? There you go. Let's see if that works. All right, I'm gonna try going down with mine.
Okay.
Okay, what am I hitting? Oh shit!
The frame already.
It's hitting the link, the lower link.
Yeah.
So that's.
So that means it's already past that point.
Yeah, but mind you, it's not even right height. It should go like a couple inches higher, right? So we go in. That's already a lot of articulation, more than your leaf spring ever had. Right? It seems to do good.
Now we gotta go out with the frame, huh?
Well, now I would say lower the whole thing, right? So let's simulate right height, right? So we figure right height's gonna be
That needs to be level.
around there.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So we go with the rule of upper links, you want them to be at 0 degrees, right? If we go in the middle of this link, right? Let me see. Go ahead and lower it. It's like at 2 degrees, so just bring it down. Stop right there. You can go down a little bit more. It's 1 degree. Right there. So that's like 1 degree or half a degree. That's pretty close to 0, right? That moved a lot, and it's just, yeah, see, it's at 0 now. So now these should be like 10 degrees, right? You want it around there. So
Well, gonna be a higher number towards the end.
well, the angle is going to be the same regardless.
I don't think.
It's one line. The angle is not going to be 10 degrees here and 5 degrees over here. It's the same angle. So, and yep, it's like right at 8. It's at like 8 degrees, which is pretty good, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could probably bring this down a little bit more to get it right on 0, and this will probably give you closer to like 8.5, 9. So I would say that's pretty good. Now, let's lower it. Let's see what this one says. Oh, it's stuck. Hold on. This one's yeah, it's like a half a degree. Go ahead and lower it just a little bit more. Stop right there. That's 0. That's right on the money. That's right on 0. Okay, this is now, it's sure enough, it's like 9 degrees now. It's like 8.5, 9 degrees. Just right there, which is like really close to where you want it. Right? Generally, you want like a maximum of 10 degrees. I think this is what it is for the lower link, right? So say this would be your right height, right? So from here to here. All right, so the actual seems to articulate pretty good. The links here are working good, and then this little setup here, we adjusted it from 20 to 23 degrees, so you can see there's a little bit of an offset there. That seems to work, and it goes up and down pretty good. The only one thing we noticed is this lower link here, we tack welded that one in place, and then this one's pointing down a little bit. It's kind of hard to see, and it's actually at a 30-degree down angle. And then the one over there, we noticed, is actually pointing down more, and that one's at 45 degrees down. So I think just one of the links might be off. So we're debating to either go to the 45s or stick with the 30s. We'll figure it out. But I think that's it for today. Part 2. Maybe pick up again next week. Thanks everybody for watching. So like always, build it, race it, break it. Don't be afraid to try new things yourself. Don't be afraid to build it yourself. We don't know what we're doing. We're not experts, but here we are in my garage, and that's exactly what we're doing. So it's all part of the fun. So thanks for watching. Part 3 next week. See you later.